Dave here. Hold on, I've got to get my microphone. Dave here. How are you, everybody? Today is the 8th of, September. Yes, 8th of September, 2019. Can someone please let me know if the stream is coming through okay? I think it should be. It says everything is working here. I'm just waiting for someone to say yes. It's all good. That'd be great. Waiting. In the meantime, all good. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Excellent. So I have a guest today. Guest today? Sound like yesterday, doesn't it? Guest today, and Ian Kerry from Valley Heights, Springwood area in the Blue Mountains. Now, if you're a local up this way, you will know of Ian's automotive workshop just across from Bunnings. And he's going to talk to us about chainsaws, whippersnippers, and let me see if I get on this side. You might see a couple of things that he's sent up to us. And he's waiting in the green room, as they say on TV. Anyway, give me 10 minutes and we'll bring Ian in. And also he's got some beautiful Turner planes. Now, the image at the beginning of the show is one of his planes. I took a photo of as soon as he brought it on, so I just got to get a photo of that. Do you like the acetate handles? So it's a cellulose acetate. I think that's what they're called. Anyway, Ian is very much up on all of that kind of subject. Now, also, quickly at the beginning here, I'm still going to talk to you about this guy here because they've still got a few to get rid of. And as I was saying, if you want to, you can buy one of those online. I'll put a link in the description box down the bottom. And one lucky person in Australia will have the option of getting a $500 gift card. Go back to this camera here. So that's a pretty good deal. $100 off, plus you get that option if you want. Now, to do that, you'd have to go to the link, as I say, put in the promo code Stanton, and away you go. You'll see it gets added to the draw, and I'll do the draw here on the show. So it's just something, as I said, I saw these being sold off because they bought a container load, which they didn't really mean to buy. And I said, how about I help you get rid of them, and we'll do a little favor for my viewers as well, and away they go. They said, yes, not a problem at all. The next thing, my new lever clamp has arrived, and I haven't opened the package yet. So I'm going to do that on the show because I'm curious to have a look at it, and I'll get one of my Festool clamps out as well, and we'll have a look at that. Kids' birthday parties. Okay, now, I went to one of my grandchildren's. This is a little bit off topic, but it's fun. Look, I've got the sign up here, so don't rouse on me, anyone, for not having the sign. Now, let me have a look here. Where are we? Birthday party. This is one of my granddaughters who is enjoying some rainbow birthday cake, and it was yum. And why I showed you that picture, I'll go back to this one, was because they started playing Pass the Parcel. Now, it's a game that's universal, I guess, paper on paper on paper on paper, and you pass the parcel around. All the kids are sitting there anticipating what's going to happen, who's going to get the next, when the music's going to stop. And one thing that happened was my son-in-law was running the music, and my daughter was supervising as the parcel's going around. Anyway, it stopped at one kid, and they opened the parcel up. And my daughter immediately said to my son-in-law, are you not aware of the different colours of the paper on the parcel? And he said, no. And then looked down, and it was a boy was opening it up, and it was a pink piece of paper. So she had colour-coded. So, you're supposed to stop pink paper for a girl, blue paper for a boy. And that started me thinking about other things, and it could have been fun. I said to Vicky, how about they start Pass the Parcel? And in this time, instead of having presents all the way through, just have one piece of paper, and the first kid that gets it, that's the game over. It'd be fun. And then you'd have a few of those games during the party, and so all the kids would just change their attitude totally. Instead of, oh, my turn, maybe it's me. They'd all be saying, it's going to be this one. I want the parcel to stop with me. They'd be holding it on, wouldn't be passing it along to the other kids. It'd be similar to what we play at home sometimes during Christmas. It's a game called Spoons. Now, Spoons is a very dangerous game to play with family, if you're competitive at all, you'd need an ambulance waiting in your driveway to take people to the hospital for lacerations all over their hands. Because spoons is a game where there's however many people are playing, there's one less spoon in the middle. So all these dessert spoons or teaspoons or whatever you want, all stacked in the middle. Everyone's around in a circle, and you've got cards. You're passing cards to each other, and the idea is to collect 4 of a kind. And you don't have the whole deck there. You trim it down to be the right amount of cards. And what happens is you read chats, dude. Okay, all right. So you want to buy one of these mic stands? I should start making them on the CNC. Back to the spoons. Anyway, you get to the end. Someone gets 4 of a kind. They take a spoon. And everyone else realizes, and they all launch to grab these spoons. And instead of fingernails, they turn into talons. So another thing to look at. Yes, you do. Okay. Here we go. We're going to go on to the next thing. I'm going to have a look down through here. Let's open the clamp. I'm going to try and hold that. Look at that. It is a handy clamp stand. Let's open this up. A handy mic stand, I should say. All right. There it is. There it is. Well packed. Now, as I say, I've got links in there to it, and the Australian dollar's been going really poorly lately. Look at that. It has got a handle on it. I didn't think it'd have the plastic on the top. Give me a sec. I'll show you the Festa one. That is amazing. I thought this was just going to be the lever clamp without the plastic top on. I thought it was just going to be metal to there. But look at that. I believe they're both made by Bessey. They both go in to the tracks. Except for now, I have a red one and a green one. $93.50 in Australia. That one cost me $61 delivered. Now, as I say, Amazon at the moment, the US versus Australian dollar is not as good as it was when I bought this. I think they're around about $68 now. Anyway, the link's there. And that's enough of all of that. So how about we get Ian to come in here in a second. I'm going to have a quick read. Hello, we're also live talking about you guys for 10 minutes, and we're talking taking live calls. Okay. Moderators, beware, click daily, UK trolls, and rebroadcasts. Okay, so moderators, maybe you want to have a look at that. John, if you can have a look at that, that might be fine. You work it out. Your call. I'm not going to make any call because I haven't been able to read all of it. Okay, so I'm going to give Ian a shout, and we'll get him to come in. Ian, if you'd like to come in. As I say, I've got the microphone here. We'll do the shake hands.
Morning everybody. Morning all the faithful followers out there.
So Ian also watches the show, and he has a time. He doesn't watch it live much. A lot of the time he'll wait till he's not so busy in the evening and watch it then. And he doesn't like it if anyone interrupts. So Ian, I'm going to do a quick read. Now, I asked Ian to send me up some information about himself. And I'm going to I've done a quick abbreviation because he sent me basically a resume for a job. He's been 49 years in the one job. It's a family business. He finished school in 1970. On the same day he finished school, he started working in the family business. Now, was it just your father's business, or was it father and brothers at all?
No, it was Dad's business.
Just your dad?
Yeah, he began the business in 1967, and I joined him in 1970.
Okay, and that was 49 years ago. It's very rare for anyone to stay in one job for that amount of time. These days, it's normally 4 or 5 years you move on to another job. I don't understand that personally. I don't get it. And your son is in the business with you?
My son and daughter both work in the business with me now.
That's
and
fantastic.
have done for many years.
And so are they going to fight over who gets it?
No, there won't be any fight. No, there's no fight.
Good on you, Dad.
It's all good.
5 years in a tech course. Now, Ian put down here TAFE, but back in our day, it was called Technical College. That's all there was to it. Now, for my carpentry and joinery, it was 1 day a week for 3 years, and you had to spend 4 years with your employer. You're saying it's 5 years you spent?
That's right. It was 4 years actual attending TAFE once a week, and then there was a year to serve with your employer after that. So.
Yeah, and they were getting the most out of you with the money at that stage, weren't they?
Yeah, I think I started on $19.40 or something or other. And
I started on $30, and that's Australian. It's not a lot. It was just enough to cover the train fares, I think.
It wasn't much money, but then things didn't cost very much either.
No. And you said you got the OMC award a couple of times. Now, tell me what the OMC award was.
Well, as part of our business, we had a franchise for Johnson Evinrude outboard motors, and we used to sell and service those. And part of my job responsibility was the maintenance of customers' outboard motors. So,
much call for that in the Blue Mountains?
Yeah, surprisingly, because a lot of people live in the mountains that use their boats elsewhere.
Don't use them up on Wentworth Falls Lake?
No, although I'd be one of the few people that have actually water skied on Wentworth Falls Lake.
You're kidding me?
When I was a kid, So, and I'll tell you, it's not very warm.
No.
But yeah, we had the opportunity to do the Master Technician's exam course, which is a by invitation only.
Yep.
They only invited people that they figured were up there, and I won. I got that twice, so I was pretty proud of that.
And so where was that held?
It was held at the Outboard Marine business headquarters in Bankstown, in Sydney.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing here, because Ian does mechanical work for me as well, and I've been down in his workshop, and I've seen up on the hoist now and then a Holden with some, looks like, is there still Marlboro advertising on it?
Yeah, this car's quite a historic piece of Australian motoring legend. It now belongs to Barry Ferguson, who was the original driver. It's a 1979 Holden Commodore that was extensively modified. It was one of 4 cars that were built by George Shepherd in his workshops to run in the Round Australia trial run by Repco back in '79, and the cars were extensively modified and backed by the factory to make sure they got them around, and they finished 1, 2, 3 after driving a complete circuit of Australia through some of the fiercest roads you've ever come across.
How many kilometres or miles? Would have been miles back then.
Yeah, look, well...
I put you on the spot, haven't I?
Yeah, it's about 18,000 kilometres, I think.
That's a long way.
I'd have to confirm that, but yeah, it's a long, long way, and some foul roads, and a lot of those roads today have been sealed.
Yeah.
But back then it was pretty shocking.
So that's around 11,000 miles. Just doing a quick sum there, it's around about 6/10. 6 to 10 is your kilometre mile
that's probably right,
ratio, or so mile to kilometre.
Anyway, that car was lost for some time. It had been purchased, and Peter and his father actually found the car, and a lot of restoration work was needed on it. It had been parked, just jacked up on blocks for many, many years. And so, a lot of repair work and a lot of sourcing of old parts for it, and got the thing back up. And they've just completed the second lap of Australia, a rerun of the original trial, and they used as many of the original roads and so forth as they could. And and Barry, the original driver, Barry, I think, just turned 82 or 3, I think it was.
That's pretty amazing.
And he did most of the driving and loved every minute of it,
Good
apparently.
on him. Excellent.
So we were very happy to be a part of that process.
And for people that may not have known of Barry Ferguson, they'd know the name of Peter Brock. Now, Peter apparently came in first in that race.
That's right, yeah. Peter's car came first, the 05 car came first, and Barry's car, number 17, it came in second. Peter's car is actually in the National Motor Vehicle Museum at Bathurst, alongside the Bathurst racetrack, which a lot of people would be familiar with.
So for people that are also, if you're not aware of Peter Brock, he's a motoring legend in Australia, and I know of Peter basically because of Bathurst, the Hardy Ferodo 500. And it's not really an area where I didn't really think of him too much as far as rally carring, apart from the fact that that's what ended up killing him in Tasmania, wasn't it? In a rally and into a tree.
Yeah, in Western Australia. Yeah.
Oh, it was Western Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a tragedy. But, okay, so that's a bit of history about this guy.
Yeah, so I've done all sorts of things in all sorts of time frames, and love it all.
That's excellent. So what we're going to do is Ian's going to show us. What do you want to start with? You want to start with the still stuff, or the?
I was thinking we'd do the trimmer. We'll just do what I'd like to do is just to run through some of the basic stuff that probably everybody knows, but you sort of forget because you just got that limited time frame to use a machine to get a job done, the thing won't start. So I'm going to just run through some of the stuff that we get presented with in the business every day, just the simple things that people sometimes overlook, and things that can help you out of trouble, hopefully.
I'd like to break in at this point. Now, Ian was just mentioning to me not long ago about some people on YouTube who have been talking about chainsaws and lawnmowers and things like that and giving advice. And I thought to myself, this is an area I'd like to talk about, but I don't have anywhere near the knowledge or experience that this man here has. So rather than me just talking off the top of my head, which I'm known to do, I thought I'd get Ian in along because we're going for change of season. Hence, we're talking about this stuff. You're going to get a lawnmower out very soon if you're in Australia, if you've got a yard. And I just tried to start my lawnmower the other day and dead battery. That was the first thing with the ride-on. So I've got to get a new battery for that. I tried to use jumper leads on it and they were all mangled because they're a million years old. So I've got new jumper leads coming in as well. So for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm guessing chainsaw work if you've got a wood fire for heating, or even just yard blowers for autumn, for picking up leaves or yard maintenance of some sort. All right, and let's get started.
Yeah.
I'll move these. How good is that? I love it. I'm going to play with this afternoon. All right. Okay. Husqvarna has them as battery boxes. I'm trying to read down through. These days, only one manufacturer to be considered. Look at the branding on the T-shirt. What, this? Yeah. We don't do any promotion.
No blatant advertising going on here.
No, none whatsoever.
Yeah. It just happened to be the first shirt that came out of the top of the drawer.
That's all. So is this. I haven't seen this shirt for years. Okay, fire away.
Right, so what I brought up today...
I'm going to tip the camera down a little bit,
yeah, sure,
so that we can see what's going on.
I brought along today a hedge cutter, a chainsaw and a small line trimmer. I brought nice new ones because I didn't think David would want to have greasy, dirty old machines all over his lovely, pristine workbench. So
hold on to that, Ian. I'm going to get a Stanton bench to elevate that saw. How's that sound?
So talk about blatant advertising.
There we go. This will put it up a little bit higher so we can see what's going on. There you go. Pop it up on there.
Excellent. Look at that. So you've got a hole for the mic.
Yep. All right. We'll try that. See how it goes.
Okay. So yeah, I'll just run through briefly some of the basic points. And the things everybody knows about these things, but sometimes you forget. You've got a limited time frame to get a job done. The thing won't start. What do you look at? Well, one of the first things that we find is a major problem, and it's become a bigger problem these days, is fuel. In Australia, we have totally unleaded fuel. There's no leaded fuel anymore. It's all unleaded fuel. But we have the advent of ethanol additions into fuel, and ethanol and these guys is an absolute no-go zone. It'll tell you in the owner's manuals, yes, you can use it, but there's provisos, and look, it's just so hard.
Yep. There
are so many things that you've got to do. It's just not worth the trouble, and it's been our experience that you're better off to avoid it and go with fuels that don't have an ethanol base. The big problem with ethanol is that it absorbs moisture, and these guys, unlike motor vehicles, these guys are vented to the atmosphere. So they can absorb moisture from the atmosphere into the fuel,
right,
and that'll then cause you problems. But also the ethanol has a bad effect on carbureted diaphragms.
Rubber seals.
Yeah, sometimes the neoprene seals. To a lesser extent, fuel hoses. Fuel hoses these days are now pretty much tolerant of ethanol. But yeah, there's lots of problems with it, and you're really best to avoid it.
Well, that could be the problem with my ride-on.
Yeah.
It's full of it.
The other thing, in Australia, we have, with the fuels that they produce here in Australia, we have summer blends and winter blends, and they have different octane levels, different additive levels, I should say, for those seasons. So the fuel that you buy in summertime can be a different formulation to what you buy in wintertime. And if you're trying to use wintertime fuels that are slightly more volatile in summer, you can have vaporization issues and all sorts of things. But the biggest problem that we find with two-stroke engines and two-stroke fuel is the very limited life of two-stroke fuels. Now, once you mix any sort of lubricant with fuel, it begins an oxidization process that breaks that fuel down. It reduces the burnability, if you like, of that fuel. And after probably 3 months from the date of mixing, that fuel has lost its, has lost its best in terms of what it will do, and also it loses its ability to lubricate the engine.
Okay, so you're going to suffer wear in your motor if you. So what's your advice if you've still got half a can full of two-stroke fuel? What do you do with it?
Well, the first thing, be proactive. Only mix up what you need.
Right.
Just if you're only going to be using machines, things like a hedge cutter, where you're not using a hedge cutter on a daily basis in a domestic situation, just mix up enough fuel for what you need for that machine. Or if you've got a number of machines, and hopefully you've got a whole shed full of steel machines, mix up sufficient for the season or for a couple of months and try and use that fuel up and make up a fresh batch.
We've just had a comment there from Janice saying light the fire with it.
Light the fire. Oh, not my fire, Janice. No, nowhere near my house with that.
Oh dear.
Old fuel is a bit of a problem. We always make a habit in the shop of draining the fuel as part of a service process.
Yes.
We drain the fuel out of a machine, clean the tank out, and that's one of the things that I was going to get to with that. Nearly all two-stroke machines have an in-tank fuel filter. I can't take this one out easily, but there is a little flexible fuel hose in the tank. On the end of that hose, there is a weighted fuel filter, and it pretty much gets neglected. Nobody ever looks at the thing. They are a bit of a fiddle to get out.
Yep.
But if you get something like a piece of coat hanger wire or similar, bend a little hook on the end of it, you can fish that little sucker out, take the filter off. Best to replace it.
Where would you suggest they get one in the mountains, Ian?
Well, it's the sort of thing that's probably not a bad idea to have a spare one in your kit if you carry.
You got plenty in stock, have you?
Oh yeah, we got heaps. But that filter is often neglected, and that's something we always, as part of a normal service, we always check those things. But it's something you guys can do yourself. It's an easy thing to do. I don't recommend blowing them out. The filters on stills in particular are a relatively complex arrangement. You look at the outside of it and it has a very, very fine micro screen type of arrangement. But inside it's got some sort of a synthetic filter block, and that becomes progressively impregnated with rubbish.
Like a charcoal of some sort?
No, it's not a charcoal. No, it's actually like a white synthetic material.
Yeah. But I was basically saying on the same principle as charcoal absorbs, and you have to get rid of it eventually.
That's right.
It closes up.
It's a filter that no amount of blowing will get it clean.
Yeah.
And so therefore the machine struggles to get sufficient fuel through, runs lean, can do damage to pistons and so forth. So there you go. That's that part. So fuel's really important. Fresh fuel, and with your fuel too, if you're going to be putting the machine into storage at the end of a season when you think you might not be using it for a couple of months, drain that fuel out, start the machine and just let it run until it stops. Use up all the fuel that's in the carburetor. Yeah. No fuel left in the tank, and that will make it so come start of the next season that the machine's got a much better chance of going.
That's a good idea. That is good. One of the guys was just making comment that they buy a pre-mixed still fuel.
Yes. Yeah, we still have had motor mix now available for some time here in Australia. There was quite a few problems with getting it in the marketplace initially because of storage licenses and so forth, but yeah, most of the dealers have got that on board now, and it has an extended life. As Stephen rightly says, 3 to 5 years, and
cool.
We haven't had it long enough yet to know if that life is accurate, but we're not having any.
Is that like a shelf life, or as in the machine that's exposed with the seal on it as shelf life, or in a machine you say it might be able to absorb moisture from the atmosphere at all, or not?
No, well, it's not a fuel that will absorb moisture. Okay. So it's shelf life of the fuel in the can, and yeah, as I said, it hasn't been out long enough yet for us, but to have evaluated completely. But I'm sure still would have done their homework before it was released.
I'm going to ask a quick question.
Yep.
Of the viewers there. This position for the microphone, are you able to hear me and Ian kind of equally? Is it loud enough, or are you having to turn it up at all? If it's not, I'll go to the manual situation, or I move it around. But Okay, so we got. So that's good. Brian Shaw's just asked whether or not we should change the plug after in storage as well.
Okay, spark plugs these days last much longer than they ever did. Average around about 100 hours service life. We make it a standard thing to replace a spark plug because we don't want spark plugs are like light bulbs. You never know when they're going to fail. And on that point, I've actually brought some spark plugs to show you.
Talk about a well-prepared guest.
The sort of things that you're looking for. These are just some plugs that I took out of an engine.
So there you go for focus. You might have to put your hand behind it.
Yeah. So this one.
I'll put my hand up here. Go in closer, Ian. Over there's the camera there, buddy.
Yeah. Yep. So you can see the insulator in the centre is kind of a a coffee grey kind of colour. That's a sign of an engine that's running a good air fuel ratio. Probably got a nice clean air filter. That's that's a plug out of an engine that's running quite happily.
Okay. Come to my finger.
Huh?
Come up to here. About there. That's perfect.
Right. Okay.
And up a little higher.
This one's a bit dirty, a bit sooty, so that's probably typical of an engine that's going to have a dirty air filter or an incorrectly adjusted carburetor. This one, straight in the bin with this fella. It's absolutely black and sooty. So what happens with this? The spark, instead of jumping the gap in the centre of the plug, tracks straight down the outside of the insulator and goes to ground because spark always takes the easiest path to earth. So it'll track straight down the insulator and go to earth and not fire that mixture in the cylinder. So
is this because the carbon build-up carries the current?
Yeah, the carbon takes the spark away. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, a couple of things there. So yeah, as a preventative, good idea. Change your spark plug once a year. Absolutely.
All right. Now, which one is the shocker? Show me the shocker, the real bad one. Show me that one. Okay. I'm going to try something. All right. Now, see this?
That might be better.
That's the shocker. Can you see that any easier, guys? Okay. Which is a good one?
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's the good one.
Let's tilt him up a little bit so you can see inside of it. Yeah. So it's that colouring on the nose or the insulator of the plug. That's what you're looking for. If it's sort of that colour, or even towards a little whiter, is really good. That's a sign of a good running engine.
Okay. That one you've got there. What's that?
That's sort of middle of the range here. That one's certainly reached the end of its useful service life with that sort of colouring. And look, folks, it's an absolute waste of time cleaning spark plugs for the cost of them. In Australia, spark plugs cost between $5 and $10. It's not worth your time and frustration messing around with old spark plugs.
All right. So there we go. We've done spark plugs. Yeah. We've done fuel. What's the other thing to look for?
Okay, there's another little trap that we find, and it's a very common one these days because thanks to our friends in America that set the emission requirement laws and safety laws, most of these two-stroke machines these days have on their mufflers a spark arrestor screen on the outlet. And I'm actually going to pull this one out with Dave's assistance.
Okay. I'm doing a quick read down here.
I'm just going to take this one out. These guys are on the outlet to the exhaust, and they're put there to stop bits of hot carbon flying out of your engine and setting fire to the backyard or the bush or wherever you happen to be using them.
Give me that.
Yeah. This.
We're going to hold that up behind.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Okay. Higher up.
So that's the spark arrestor screen. That's the outlet. Screws into the muffler, and these take various forms. This one, obviously, a tubular form.
Yep.
On chainsaws, a lot of them are just a flat mesh that achieves the same purpose. They're just a flat mesh that will sit over the outlet of the muffler and be held in place by a grill or sometimes part of the muffler case. But most of the two-stroke engines have this fitted, and a lot of the machines that we find coming in for service, guys have cut these off, ground them off, whatever, left the whole fitting out. Don't do it. These units form an integral part of the tuning of these engines to achieve optimum power and optimum durability. If you cut the screen off these, or you leave the screen out of your chainsaw, for instance, because you can't be bothered replacing it or cleaning it. It has the effect of allowing the exhaust to run out of the engine too easily, and that can make the machine run lean, and subsequently you end up with
Burn the piston?
piston damage.
Is that similar to a two-stroke motorcycle where they've got a baffle in it to keep the back pressure on the motor?
Yep, that's right. It's exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Back pressure in a two-stroke is crucial, and of course it also has an effect on the noise level of the machines. So if you've taken that out, that machine is going to make a hell of a lot of racket compared to when it's installed correctly. So you can clean those. They're a replaceable item. They're a replaceable service item. You can clean them simply by brushing them with a wire brush, some solvent. Typically, if they're not too bad, you can just spray them with a parts cleaner, like a brake parts cleaner.
Carburetor cleaner?
Carby cleaner's okay. Yeah, you've got to be very careful with carby cleaner. Carby cleaner
Is flammable?
Well, it's not only flammable, but it's also can be very hazardous on plastic materials.
Right.
You don't want to be spraying it anywhere near anything plastic because it can react with the plastic, make it go all soggy. And,
Is that like acetone?
Yeah, it's sort of like that, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, carburetor cleaner can be used, but a little wire brush and just get it just so that you can see through it. That's all you
Excellent.
need to do. That's one that we strike very, very commonly, and it's something we see a lot.
Are they just on steel, or are they on across all of them?
It's all machines, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Not on four-stroke machines?
Yeah, they
Like
are on
lawnmowers?
4 strokes, yeah. Yeah, they're quite commonly used on
Okay.
most machines use some sort of a
We've
scrum.
just had a question there from Stephen, just asking whether or not you service all brands.
Yes, we do, Stephen. Yeah, we service most brands of machines. There are some brands of machines that are handled by, shall we say, unnamed big box stores that there is no actual parts backup supply for, and to be honest, the things that fail on them keep on failing, and those brands of machines we tend to avoid because they
It's
tend
just
to
going to come back and get you.
They come back and haunt you.
Stephen's just asked a question along those lines. What about still four-stroke running on two-stroke fuels? Is there
yes.
is there a still four-stroke out there?
Yes, there
Yep.
is. It's what still termed their 4-mix engine. Now, the 4-mix engine is a true 4-stroke engine, and it runs on 2-stroke mix, which means the benefit of that is that you don't have to have a crankcase full of oil that you've got to remember to change or top up or check. You just put the same fuel in it that you
Right.
use in every other steel machine. The big advantage of that, you get the benefits of the torque of a 4-stroke engine because it is a true 4-stroke engine, but they very cleverly designed the intake tract so that the fuel air mixture goes through the engine before it's then directed to the intake valve to be then introduced into the engine to burn.
Right.
Very, very clever, very, very simple, no extra moving parts, just really, really good technology.
So my question on the four-stroke versus a two-stroke, obviously a two-stroke it's only one up, one down for the piston for every fire. A four-stroke is 4 times up and down for every fire.
That's correct.
One is to clear the exhaust, one is to pull the new mix in.
Correct.
So you're saying this is the four-stroke is still going through the crankcase and then up,
That's right.
but where does it get the air mixed in with it?
Well, the air and fuel are still mixed together at the carburetor,
Right.
but it's introduced through various passageways in the engine. It goes and it's fed through the crankcase
Yes.
and lubricates the bearings and everything in the bottom end and the bottom of the cylinder skirt when
Yep.
the piston's up. All is lubricated by the incoming air, and then it's directed through a passageway up to the intake valve.
The resultant burnt fuel, the fumes from it, is that going to be more hazardous to the environment or not? No, this is just a question out of left field. I don't know if this is something that's been asked because you're burning oil. I know with my two-stroke machines, if I fire them up and they're not perfectly tuned, they blow a whole lot more smoke, and I can smell the two-stroke in comparison to my four-stroke machines.
Yeah, correct. Look, there's no getting away from it. When you're burning oil, there's going to be a resultant pollution issue, but yeah, I guess it's minimised by the fact that it's a 50-1 ratio, so
Yeah.
it's the oil component is only 2% of the fuel mix, so it's not a terrible lot of oil, but yeah, there is still
It'd be a good way
that
of getting
issue.
rid of the oil as well. Like we're
Yeah.
digging it out of the ground all the time. What happens to recycled oil? This is a question for you. Recycled oil, what do they do with it?
This is one of my favourite bugbears. You can go to your super cheap auto, your Repco, your wherever, and you can go to the supermarket and you can buy a bucket full of oil and change your oil at home. What do all these people do with this oil? We as a licensed repair shop, we have a requirement where we have to account for waste oil.
Yes.
We have to have it documented that we've had so many litres of oil collected by whoever it is on whatever date. We have to account for that, but Dave Stanton, who changes his own oil out here in the workshop, I don't know where his oil goes.
Pour it down the sink. No, I don't. What I do with mine is I take it to the tip where they take paint as well. So they take paint and second-hand oil. Yeah. So I don't know what they do with it from there.
No, I would imagine it's taken by a licensed contractor.
Yeah.
And I would hope that everybody does the same thing, because there's no compulsion to do that. Now, it just worries me.
Shot it in the big bin and see you later.
Yeah, but and how many people just take it down the back block and tip it in the bush?
Yep.
Well, it's frightening. Anyway.
Yeah, put it in your neighbour's bin. Don't worry, put it in your own. Okay.
So that's a bit of basic there. Obviously, with a hedge cutter, you've got your blade system here. These, whoops.
Yep. What's the best way to lubricate these? That's all right. Carl's fine.
The blades on a brush cutter need to be lubricated externally.
Hedge trimmer.
Hedge trimmer, I should say.
That's all right. It's been 49 years, Ian.
Yeah. You know, I didn't sleep very well last night. The excitement. It's like being in Santa's toy room.
I was like the same. I was waiting for you to come up. I couldn't believe it.
Okay, so the blades on a hedge cutter have no automatic oiling as they do, say, on a chainsaw. So it relies on the operator putting some lubricant on there and still make a very good product. And there's various proprietary brands of spray you can use on them. One that's available here in Australia that's very good is Lanox. It's a lanolin-based spray, very good for hedge trimmers. Leaves a heavier film, a soft film, which doesn't evaporate away like WD-40 and those sort of things. WD's better than nothing, but
it's not going to be any good for the hedge, though, is it?
No, well, that's the thing.
I was going to say,
lanolin's not too bad.
Olive oil, but I have used linseed oil, and what happened was, I'm an idiot. I put linseed oil on it and I used it, and then I went to use it the next time, and it set. It was like glue.
That's right.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah. So, bad move. So olive oil, would that do?
I've never used it, but yeah, probably would if you had very sensitive.
I'm just thinking of oils that have got a high ignition temperature. So I know that different plant oils have got a higher, like peanut oil, I think has got a very high ignition temperature. And that would probably be, because this would get warm, wouldn't it?
Oh, it gets a bit warm, but yeah, it's not too bad.
Not too bad? Okay. You cut your pizza up with it when you finish.
These blades can also be sharpened. We have a device that...
they can't see it down there, Ian.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. We have a device that can sharpen those blades. It's a very labour-intensive operation. Obviously, the blade, if it's kept lubricated, the thing will last for a long time and it will stay sharp, unless you happen to find that piece of chain wire fence that's buried in your hedge, or that steel star picket post that somebody put in there 25 years ago. Yeah, they don't like that. But the sharpening of these blades is a very labour-intensive operation. We have a machine that does it, but it's still a hand-operated machine, and it's about $100 to sharpen hedge cutter blades, so they are worth looking after.
Yep.
The cost of replacement blades is now coming down, so we're actually finding that in some instances it's even cheaper just to replace them.
Yep.
And we find that people that are lubricating the blades each time they use them, and it's best to lubricate these each time after you've used it. Firstly, because it takes away that moisture problem.
All right.
The moisture is going to rust that cutting edge.
Yep.
And in so doing, it'll round that cutting edge to make it less effective. But it also means that you're not going to get rusting of the thing while it's sitting in storage between the next use.
Quick question. Why are the blades offset? See from here out to there, and the teeth are here.
Yeah. Look, I really can't answer that question, Dave. I'll have to
maybe
find that out.
Maybe this is just the scoop area, and that's where your cutting is closer down, where it's got more strength.
It's possibly to do with safety, because that then presents a blocking. You know, if you happen to bump your leg or whatever, that is, you haven't got the tip of a blade jumping backwards and
oscillating
forwards.
all over the place,
That
yep.
piece is fixed, so it's
Yep.
not moving. So it's possibly a safety feature, but
Right.
I'll actually have to check on that.
I have a couple of
Caught
questions.
me on that one.
David Lucy's just asking here. His still guy took the end off the exhaust screen. Should I replace the screen now?
Where are we? David Lewis.
Just there.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's took the exhaust screen out the last service. Due to tuning problem, should I replace the screen? Yeah, absolutely, David. Look, as I mentioned earlier, those screens are very important to achieve the correct back pressure levels in the machine. If the machine has an adjustable carburettor, and by adjustable I mean you've got two mixture screws, so you've got a low speed and a high speed fuel mixture screw and your idle speed screw. If your machine has those and you have the ability to be able to richen the mixture slightly, you can do that. That will offset it to some extent, but ideally the manufacturer designed it to be there for a reason, not just for spark, but it's also part of the overall design structure of the machine to achieve the right back pressure so it produces the right amount of power. So the answer is yes, it should be there.
Okay, I'm reading a heap of other things down the side here. So we've got people are saying to use the old engine oil for killing termites, painting fences, and what have you.
Oh.
Yep, and there's
Yeah.
another one here. Stephen's saying olive oil is acidic, so it might have a negative effect on the blade. So
Never had any
something.
experience with that. So
And another gentleman, Alex, is saying that he's got two steel chainsaws. One's 20 years old and still runs like new. Try that with the new imports.
Also.
Husky is 30 years old, 55 rancher, and he's going to bring all his gear up to you. So look out for him.
Yeah, no, we still look after Huskies. We actually had both franchises for Husqvarna and Stihl running side by side for some 36 years. A couple of years ago, we had a situation where the hierarchy of both organisations decided that they didn't want to share the shop
Right.
with another manufacturer, which we didn't see any sense in because everybody sells multi-brand. Carbatec sell multi-brand.
Yep.
Harvey Norman sell multi-brand. Everybody's got multiple brands. They wanted to go specialised, and we were forced into a situation where we had to make a decision one way or the other.
Yep.
When we had a look at the numbers, 85% of our customer base were still owners.
Yep.
It was a no-brainer.
So you've still got still.
But look, I take nothing away from Husqvarna.
Yep.
Husqvarna's a great product. We would still have them, still no pun intended.
Ah, come
we
on.
would continue to have them
Yep.
had these people not, got on their high horse and got all stupid.
And so
about it.
they probably ended up shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, they kind of have because look, it's like so many things. You get people come into the store that will buy a Husqvarna and they wouldn't touch a Stihl or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's it's just
Yeah.
and we didn't miss out on a sale.
I experienced that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right, what have we
Yeah.
got next?
One-
Because we've
one
got
last
come
thing.
up to 1:45, so we haven't got too much time left.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, one last thing,
Yep.
the air filter. Air filter on every machine, very important. This one simply pops out. They're a chuck away item. They're about $5. You don't mess around with them.
Yep.
Used to clean them, but look, to be honest, you just chuck them away and put a new one in. That's something that's very important on all machines. Have a look at that one too. And that pretty much covers the basics on that.
Cool.
Man, we're going to run out of time. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Somebody around here talks too much.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Okay.
So, recapping, we've got old fuel. Don't use ethanol fuel in lightweight machines, especially in older cars, because anything that's not a fuel injected system, is that right, Ian? Would you say anything that's got a carburetor in it, don't use Z10?
Any outdoor power equipment,
Yeah. What about vehicles?
Motor vehicles, not such a problem. Some of the really old cars, like
Yeah.
go back 25 years, maybe.
What about my old car that I just got?
No, it'll be fine.
Fine on
unleaded
E10?
fuel's fine. In ethanol fuel, as long as the manufacturer specifies you can use ethanol fuel in it, it's fine.
Well,
no
on the
problem.
cap, when I opened the thing up the other day, it says use high oct or use premium or whatever
Premium?
fuel.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know whether they're just saying use that to make their vehicle perform better and feel as though it's got a lot more horsepower under the hood or not. I don't know.
Some vehicles, the octane requirement of the vehicle is such that you need to use a high level fuel.
Right.
and I don't think it's to do with the compression ratio of the engine.
Right.
So if you've got an engine that's got a high compression ratio, it needs to use a high octane fuel. That's the relevance of it.
Okay.
So
All right. Well,
yeah,
I'm going to
pretty-
have to stop
pretty
being
important to
tired
stick
on it,
by
aren't I?
that.
All right.
Alright,
Let's
so-
hook in. What else have we got?
I
Chains. Let's have a quick look at the
Yeah,
chains.
chains. Just wanted to
Look at
talk
this.
about a couple of things.
How good is
there.
this guest?
Couple
Alright.
of things there.
This is for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, with chains, there's various chains. People come in and say to us, "What sort of chain do I need?"
Yep.
You know, well, they come in and say, "Oh, I want a chain for my saw." Yeah, that's great. What sort of saw is it? It's a steel. Oh, let me tell you, it's a grey one and an orange one. How about a model? What sort of chain do you want? People have no idea what sort of things their saws are fitted with. So there's a few differences. In the chain cutter, you've got a chisel type cutter, or what they call a semi or micro chisel cutter. The chisel cutter has got a very, very square format. You can see looking at the back of the tooth. You can see it's got a very square profile to it. Okay, and semi chisel, it's got a rounded profile. So this area here is rounded. The difference with these two is,
I think they'll see it all fine from this distance.
yeah, the difference with these is what we call the undercut angle, and I can show you better on this guy because it's a little bigger.
Now, how long have you had that for?
This is tied into what I was going to talk about next. This came from Turner Industries, who made at the time Turner Atkins saw chain. It's no longer made. The Turner company was wound up in 1970, but this was given to my dad, who started the chainsaw business back in the late 1950s. This was given to Dad when he went to Melbourne, helping the engineers who actually developed the saw chain. They had a problem with the rivets on the saw chain snapping, and he went down and helped them reorganise with some testing and so forth, and they improved the chain enormously. But we've had this in the business since the early 1960s, and it's a great demonstration piece because it shows you the various angles and what you need to do. This chain is what the class is a semi-chisel, so it's got the rounded profile there rather than a square profile on the corners, and it's much better for general cutting and all-round wood where you're cutting firewood and that type of thing. It'll hold its edge longer, doesn't cut quite as fast. The super chisel chain, because of its profile, cuts much faster, but the downside of it is that it doesn't hold its edge as long.
Yep.
And this point of the chain will tend to dull off very, very
Right.
quickly.
Okay.
I could probably go into another whole show on sharpening chain.
We might have to get you back on
We
that.
might have to come back another day
Yeah.
because we're running out of time.
Okay. All right. What's the next thing?
Now, the Turner planes.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Turners. I'll move these out of the way.
I have a bit of a connection with them because Turner has been something that the Turner name has been something that I've been involved with all my working life because
Come in closer to the mic.
because I began work the very day that Turner Industries closed down, and we had thousands of feet of saw chain in stock, and I've still actually got a couple of reels of it down at work of a size that we don't use anymore. This is one of them. This is a chain that's no longer manufactured. This is a 9/16 of an inch pitch chain. It is enormous. You can see by the size of those cutters.
So
That's-
9/16 is nearly
Nine-
3/8 of an inch, isn't it?
Oh no. 9/16.
That's more than it. It's nearly 5/8.
Yeah,
Halfway
it's
between
almost
half
like
inch and
that, yeah.
5/8. So that's 9/16 would be close enough to 13 millimeters.
So anyway, I developed an interest in woodworking tools, and I've sort of collected all these bits and pieces about Turners. This was something I picked up on eBay, which is a bit of a prized possession, bit of a sales card for a hardware shop probably that sold Turner planes in the day. And I've always had a bit of a liking for the Turner planes because of their cellular acetate handles, which were advertised as being an unbreakable handle. So I brought a few examples up. So that's a number 5. This is the one Dave photographed earlier. Some
While
of
you're
these-
getting those out, I'll do a quick history on Turner planes. I found something on the web this morning about them. Had a lifespan of 35 years and began in April 1935 and closed in November 1970. As Ian was saying, the day he finished school, when Stanley and Stanley Titan bought them out and either started producing some of them or using them for their own style or just absorbed the business into their own company. When they started out, the guy who started Turner off had three employees, I should say. When the company closed, they had 1,100 employees. Would you believe that there was 1,100 families in Australia were relying on a hand plane manufacturing company at home? We hear about all of these other ones in the States, and we hear about Stanley in England, but we never really hear too much about Australian manufacturing. We're probably going to hear less of it as time goes by. But
these are a couple of my prized possessions, and I've got.
I'm going to bring the camera in close. We can't leave that. Out there.
I have quite a lot of Turner planes, and these are probably the pick of them. Some of them, the number 7 is one of my users, and the others I've collected over a period of years. These ones I've had for quite some time.
How often have these ones been out of the box then?
In my time of ownership, well, I guess probably more than 2 or 3 times I've had them out.
So we feel extremely privileged. These are collector's items.
These are pretty amazing. These planes still got the original blades in them. They've never been honed or ground or anything. It's still got. You can actually just see it there. You can still see the lacquer on the tip of the blades. I try not to handle the metal parts at all.
Yep.
This one's the same sort of deal. These are beautifully made, and just a very, very pretty plane to have, and very nicely made. Interestingly, one of the features about them, when Stanley took over, they no longer machined this edge of the web of the plane. All the Australian-made Stanleys were just a rounded casting, and they don't look anywhere near as smart as what these did with the finished machining.
They're beautiful.
Very nice planes. And I've got a very, very large number of planes, and there's quite a.
How many would you have? How many planes?
I stopped counting at 600.
You're an idiot.
Absolute tragic.
600 planes.
Absolute tragic.
And your wife married you because of your plane collection, didn't she?
Up until that moment, Dave, she didn't know how many I have.
Well,
so I'm in for it when I get home.
She doesn't know.
No, I'm afraid she wouldn't have any idea how many planes I have.
Would you get good money for them on eBay, you reckon, Ian?
No, I don't think you get good money on eBay.
Well said, because she would have had you putting them all on eBay straight away.
No, look, a lot of the planes that I've got are, planes that are projects, something to do when I retire next year. End of next year, I've set for a retirement date, and I intend to spend a bit of time preserving these things. And these are things that are not used very much by the run of the mill carpenters these days. They all use electric stuff.
It's a thing of beauty. Absolutely gorgeous.
Keeping these things in good working order is quite an art in itself, and I've been fortunate enough to be involved over many years with some guys that have taught me a lot about looking after and tuning these planes through the traditional tool group here in Australia, which are a bunch of guys that do tremendous work in preserving the old trades and also the tools, of course. And as far as planes go, guys like Jim Davey and Johnny Daniel have been instrumental in teaching me an enormous amount about what to do with these planes. And some of the planes I will do a lot of work to and restore and clean and so forth, and use them and make stuff with them that I want to achieve. Other planes that I have, like these ones, I think are just preserve and protect.
Yep.
Keep them for somebody else, because end of the day, we're all just custodians of stuff.
Of course we are.
Once we go,
yep,
it's somebody else's job.
Totally
so
agree.
I think it's important, and particularly Australian made. We don't make anything in Australia anymore except nuisances of ourselves. And I think that the fact that these were Australian made for the Australian market, I think is a great thing.
What I want to show you guys is something you guys can do at home. How many of you have got jeans like mine? See that? Knees gone? This is what you do.
You get your wife to sew the end of it up.
You don't have to get your wife to do it. You can do it yourself. That's his plain sock. So it's the end of his pair of jeans that have gone in the knee, because he's a mechanic. He's always down on his knees. And that's for the number 7.
That's it. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. And so
They're all the same length.
They're all the same
Yeah,
length.
because I'm the same length.
Yeah, but I thought you would have just, cut them off.
No. Just
Short
make them all to fit a 7 or 8, and then.
But what a great
one size
idea.
fits all.
Just a leg of your jeans. That's amazing. That's fantastic. And these are overalls.
Yeah, no, King G work trousers.
King
yeah.
G, there you go. All right.
One other quick little thing
Yeah.
on the Turner theme. Turner used to make lots and lots of stuff. These are some of the screwdrivers that they used to make as well. So the square shaft screwdrivers and ratcheting type screwdrivers for carpentry work. Those are brilliant. These are items that I picked up at various garage sales. And
Now, Ian showed me
So
these this morning, and I said, they're Turner. Are they? I can't believe it. Look at his nice and clean. This is mine. It's covered in rust and rubbish. Yeah, this is the same thing. I never realised I had a Turner product. This is a ratchet. I'd have struggled getting it. She seized up inside, I think. I need to hit it with a bit of oil of some sort. There she goes. But I was given this as an apprentice. How long have you had yours for?
yeah.
I was 16 when I was given this.
A long time. This
Amazing.
This one I've probably had for 40 years.
Square shank.
It's square shank. That was one of my originals. The thing about the Turner screwdriver that makes it a bit iconic is it fits perfectly in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful screwdriver to use, and nobody has successfully replicated that shape. So,
Do you find the handles, these are still a cellulose acetate, are they?
don't know. I'm not sure, Dave. Can't answer that one.
Because this one, it's had a pounding. Like I've smashed this with a hammer as I've tried to use as an impact driver to take
That's
the
'cause
screws
you're a
out.
builder.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's lasted very well. And the shaft is extremely strong in it too. That's
yeah.
never bent.
No.
That has never bent. Like I've had cheaper screwdrivers that they do. But it's covered in shellac and Estopol. I've used it for everything. You're cringing, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right. I think that's just about it. Is there anything else you want to show us at all, Ian?
Yeah, look, there is
We've
other
got-
things, but yeah, we might have to do.
We've got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I'd really like to probably spend a bit more time on chain sharpening. But look, sharpening a saw chain is a bit of a science. It's very important to look for the damage. One of the things that we do when we're sharpening chains, and we do hundreds of them every week, the damage that occurs to that cutting edge is the thing that you're trying to remove. People will say, oh, you just need 2 or 3 swipes with a file. Not always the case.
Right.
If it's only just dull, that may work. But what you've got to do is clean that cutter and just have a look around your chain. Make sure that you can see all the finish. On a saw chain, that piece at the top is the shiny bit is a chrome-plated finish, and it's the chrome that actually does the cutting. The metal underneath it just supports that chrome. It's the hard chrome that does the work. So if that chrome's damaged, it's not going to cut for very long.
Yep. Okay.
So you might give it 2 or 3 swipes with a file and it might feel sharp, but unless you've removed all the damage back to a clean, undamaged chrome edge, that chain will not cut for long.
So with spanners, chrome vanadium steel. So the chrome is the hard part. What's
That's
the
right.
vanadium? Is that kind of
It's just a component of chromium. Yeah, I'm
Right.
not sure of the
Okay.
metallurgy on that, but yeah, it's what makes it hard.
So yep. Okay.
But yeah, removing enough of the damage to that cutter is the secret to success, and also making sure that the difference in height between the depth gauge and the cutting edge is maintained at the correct height. Typically, it's around 25 thousandths of an inch or 0.65 of a millimetre difference in height. And the reason for that is, as that's passing through the wood, it works in much the same way as a wood plane does. That does the job of the sole of the plane. That's the blade, obviously. It's got to have some bite to it. And if it's not lower, if this depth gauge is not lower than the cutting edge, it's just going to skate over it. So it needs to be able to bite into the wood. So maintaining those at the correct height is very important also.
Stephen saying the price of Turner planes has just gone up on eBay.
Yeah, well, if you find any, look me up on Facebook. I'd love to buy them. I love my Turner planes, and they're not making any more of them.
Okay, so here's the question. Have you got enough pairs of jeans to make covers for them all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
600 pairs of, or 300 pairs of jeans?
No, they're not all Turners, though.
No, okay.
I've got a few odd ones, a few American planes, or quite a few American planes, but I've concentrated on Australian made because they are not making any more.
Yep.
So I've got the Turners, I've got their predecessor, the Falcon Pope, I've got Pope, and I've
Where's
got
this one?
Falcon,
You haven't shown this one.
and the Carters. Yeah,
Look at this.
I think if Jim Davey, if you're watching, I know you've just fallen off the lounge because I know how much you hate these things. But they are quite a challenge to get working. They were very, very crudely cast and fairly roughly made. But yeah, I've got a bit of a soft spot for them. And yeah, this one runs off a pretty nice shaving. And I've got quite a few Carters that I've poured an inordinate amount of time into to get them to cut nicely. And they're just a curiosity, and they're something that were made in the late 50s because imports were very, very hard to get. There wasn't anybody making them. And so these guys jumped in. These were made not far down the road from where Dave works at Carbatec in Auburn. These were made in various plants around Parramatta and Granville. And yeah,
I'm going to do a close-up on this plane for you.
present a bit of a challenge.
So I'll bring it up closer, and we'll put that behind it. So I've got to cover the workshop sign coming closer. So that's going to give you a bit of a better focus. Slowly running past. It is so hard at the moment to get the focus correct on this because it's finding absolutely anything in the workshop to focus on. There we go.
One quick thing about these Carter planes, the iron or the blade is very, very high quality steel, and they're a little bit thicker than the blades on Stanley planes. So if you guys are ferreting around in sales or markets or whatever, and you see one that's got a good blade in it, grab it, because those blades hold a very, very good edge. They're an excellent blade, and you can use. They fit in any of the Stanley type planes. So yeah, quite a good thing to keep an eye out for. But yeah, they're a bit of a challenge to get working right. You can come back out now, Jim.
Okay. All right. I think we've come up to it's just gone past 12. I'd love to thank you, Ian, so much for bringing all that stuff up.
It's been a pleasure.
You know, it's such an eye opener for hand tools, and so many people wouldn't know of Turner planes, which they're works of art, and the information on what to do with chainsaws and hedge trimmers, and Ian's also got a line trimmer down there, but we just aren't going to have time today to talk about it. I try and mix the show up as much as I can. As I say, last week we did a little bit with the CNC, even though we had a massive fallover with technical problems. And if you're interested in what happened there, there was an update on my machine, on my computer, and it dropped the license key that I have to type in for my software to be able to talk to communicate. Not commute. I'm showing my age more than Ian is. With YouTube, also YouTube has a world clock, and Australia at the moment is kind of going through these change of seasons. We're coming up to daylight savings soon, and that's all there is to it. It was saying half past when it was should have been on the o'clock. There was a whole heap of things just went wrong. I spent a lot of time during the week trying to resolve all of that. I think I've got it right. And for people that weren't watching last week, the 22nd of November is the date that I've been given for us to go to NBN. I will be going to the highest rate possible, and I'm fingers crossed that it's going to work well. Ian has just gone to NBN with his workshop, and we did a quick test the other day, 18 meg up per second.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting thing with that, megabytes and megabits are a different animal. So megabits, there are 8 megabits in a megabyte. So for communication, for upload speed or download speed, they're talking in megabits. So a very rough way of doing it is divide it by 10. So if you're getting, let's say 100 megabytes down, it's basically going to, I've stuffed myself up there. It's not 100 megabytes, it's 100 megabits. So it's divided by 10, it's going to be closer to 10 megabytes of actual data that's going to be coming down, not 100 megabytes. Different animal. So there we go. That's about all of it. I'm hoping everyone's had a good week, and that going forward next week, you're going to have a great week. And look after yourselves, be nice to each other, and I will get this one ready over here. I think I've gone through everything. There we go, and that's the lot. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Goodbye from him.
Thanks for having me at your house.
See you later.